There is a story buried in the old scriptures that reads less like an ancient miracle and more like a forensic report of a total psychological collapse. To understand it, you have to look past the stained glass and see it for what it is. The anatomy of a high performer hitting a wall they didn't see coming. It starts with a man who has reached the absolute peak of his power. His name is Elijah. He had just lived through the moment we are told to sacrifice everything for, the showdown. This was the definitive, "I've finally made it" breakthrough. On the heights of Mount Carmel, Elijah didn't just perform, he dominated. Imagine the scene: 450 competitors on one side, Elijah on the other, and a nation of spectators waiting to see who would fail. Elijah called down fire from the sky, crushed his competition, and for one electric moment, he was the center of the universe. He was so high on adrenaline and holy success that he literally outran a chariot in a rainstorm. He was the high performer, the disruptor, the one who finally proved everyone else wrong. In that moment, he felt invincible. He thought the win had finally fixed everything. He thought the culture had changed because he worked harder and shouted louder than anyone else. But have you ever noticed that the hardest part of a peak isn't the climb? It's the crushing weight of what comes next. It's the silence that follows the applause, where you realize you have to maintain the very thing that nearly killed you to achieve. The victory lasted only until a single notification hit his desk. Elijah had returned to the city, likely expecting a parade. Instead, a messenger arrived from the palace with a note from Queen Jezebel. It wasn't a complex political strategy. It was a cold, calculated dismissal of everything he'd just achieved. It said, "By this time tomorrow, your life will be like the ones you destroyed." In modern terms, it was the ding of an email from a superior or a client with the power to undo your life's work in a single sentence. It was the realization that even a miracle didn't stop the machine. Jezebel wasn't impressed by his fire. She didn't care about his metrics. She simply wanted him gone. And suddenly, the man who just conquered a nation snaps. He doesn't fight. He doesn't lean in. He doesn't go back to the mountain to call down more fire. He runs. He runs until the adrenaline turns into a cold, hollow ache in his chest. He runs because he has been hit by the most dangerous side effect of hustle culture, the disappointment of success. It's the terrifying realization that no matter how much fire you call down, the hustle never ends. The goalposts just move further away. You know this feeling. It's the Sunday scaries that start on Friday night, because you know the victory of last week won't protect you from the demands of next week. It's that moment when you realize that even your biggest win didn't actually fix your life. It just gave you more to lose. Your mind knows you're technically successful, but your nervous system is trapped in a permanent state of fight or flight, waiting for the next threat to land in your inbox. Elijah runs until the road ends. He leaves his staff behind, he leaves his identity behind, and he collapses a day's journey into the brutal, empty desert. He stops under a broom tree, not a corner office, not a luxury retreat, just a scrubby, pathetic shrub in the dirt that offers barely enough shade to cover his head. There, the high achiever sits in the dust and breaks. "I have had enough," he whispers into the sand. "Take my life." Listen to the weight of that sentence. This isn't a request for a long weekend or a mental health day. This is the language of a soul that has hit the absolute floor of burnout. He's not asking for a pivot or a new strategy. He's asking for an exit. This is the terrifying reality of the grind. It's the moment you realize that giving 110% didn't save you. It just emptied you out until there was nothing left to give to the people you love, or even to yourself. If we were writing this story today, we'd try to fix him. We'd give him a motivational podcast about resilience. We'd offer him a new productivity hack or a lecture on mindset. We'd tell him he's a leader and that the world is watching, so he needs to pick himself up and grind harder. We treat burnout like a character flaw, a lack of grit. But the story does something much stranger and much more beautiful. An angel touches him. There's no lecture, no 3 keys to bouncing back. There is no "what's your why" speech. Instead, there is the smell of fresh bread baked over hot coals and a jar of cold water. "Get up and eat," the angel says. Elijah eats, drinks, and, remarkably, goes back to sleep. He doesn't bounce back immediately. He doesn't wake up transformed, because a single meal doesn't heal a nervous system that has been white-knuckling it for years. His body needs to process the trauma of the mountain and the terror of the flight. So the angel comes back a second time. He touches him again, a physical reminder that he is still real, still human, still seen. The angel says something every exhausted person needs to hear. "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." Read that again. The sacred text itself names a limit. It doesn't say he was weak. It doesn't say he lacked faith or hustle. It says, this life you're living, the expectations you're carrying, the battles you're fighting, it is more than a human frame was ever meant to carry. Only after he is fed, only after he has rested, only after his body has been allowed to catch up to his soul, does he hear the voice ask, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And out comes the script of the burnt-out professional. It's the story we all tell when we're depleted. He says, "I've worked harder than anyone. I've been more zealous than anyone. I'm the only one left who cares. And now they're trying to take the last of me." Burnout shrinks your world until all you can see is your own effort and your own isolation. You forget your team. You forget your friends. You become convinced that you are the sole pillar holding up the sky. And if you stop, the whole world stops with you. It is a lonely, arrogant, and devastating place to be. On that mountain, Elijah waits for a sign. There is a great wind that shatters rocks, but the story says God was not in the wind. There is a massive earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. There is a raging fire, but God was not in the fire. These were the hustle versions of power. These were the loud, flashy things Elijah used to define his success. But they were empty. Instead, after the noise died down, there was a thin silence. A still, small voice. The kind of voice you can't hear when your phone is buzzing and your ego is screaming. The kind of voice that requires a nap and a meal before you can even tune into the frequency. Before the new mission, there was a meal. Before the revelation, there was rest. The story understands something our culture refuses to admit. A burnt-out soul doesn't need more grind. It needs to be human again. It needs to realize that the world doesn't end when we stop. In fact, God tells him later that there were 7,000 others working alongside him that he was too tired to even notice. We've been sold a lie that if we just optimize our lives, we'll be unstoppable. Elijah's story warns us. Sacred work without sacred limits breaks everyone eventually. You can be doing the right thing, in the right place, for the right reasons, and still hit a wall that your nervous system cannot scale. If you are lying under your own version of a broom tree today, staring at your phone, staring at the ceiling, wishing you could just disappear because you've given everything and it still wasn't enough, know this. The universe does not greet your collapse with a performance review. It doesn't ask you to reach higher. It doesn't judge you for your exhaustion. It kneels in the dust beside you, sets a meal by your head and says, "Eat. This has been too much for you. Let's begin again, more gently." If you're ready to stop the grind and start unmasking the myths that keep us exhausted, join us. We're exploring the ancient wisdom that our modern hustle has tried to bury. Hit the like button and subscribe to Unmasking the Gods as we dive deeper into the stories that actually set us free.